Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Nicole, for coming on the show, for the second time now. So I'm really, really happy, excited to have you back on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, obviously this is on the heels of the your Olympia placing and competition. And so I just kind of wanted to, talk to you about that and get your thoughts on it. But first of all, how did training for the Olympia go for you this year?
I mean, honestly, it was great. I actually recently had moved to Atlanta from New York about 6 weeks out, 6, 7 weeks out from
Oh,
the Olympics.
nice.
So it definitely helped as far as being able to focus a little bit more, taking a little break with clients. So it's kind of literally, for the most part, eat, training, and sleeping. So I could really focus on that.
Yeah, that you're now like very close to me. We have family in Atlanta. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, so we're literally like four hours away or so.
Okay.
So cool. So what made you make the move to Atlanta?
Oh, matters of the heart.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, that always does it. Got it. So you got a good I guess good environment to get ready for the show, everything. So the prep went well. No setbacks, nothing like that last week.
Probably one of the smoothest preps I've ever had, to be very honest. Got to really focus on everything that I needed to focus on, and especially the different environments of New York City versus being, in Atlanta, suburbs of Atlanta. New
Yeah.
York is hustle and bustle. Take the train, walking everywhere you go. It's
Right.
a lot of hustling. And here I kind of got to pull back a little bit and really just focus on what I needed to focus on for the Olympia. So those cortisol levels were way down.
That's good. Well, I mean, it showed in the show. You looked really good. But and we'll get to that. But as far as like coronavirus and everything like that, I know that it's not restrictions aren't as serious as they were about a year ago.
Right.
But like, did that have any effect on your training or diet, anything like that?
No, to be very honest, even with when COVID even initially, came around, yes, it was a little bit on the difficult side because I had to find a gym that I could sneak into.
Yeah.
It made it a little hard because I was literally traveling 2 to 3 hours each day there and back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being that no one was out and about, that's really all I had to do with in my day, really, besides having to train maybe like one or two clients who were still willing to train during COVID.
Right.
Uh, so, I mean, really, COVID didn't really impact me too much. If anything, I hate to say it, it kind of made things a little bit better as far as my training goes.
So it maybe made you a little bit more focused. I guess you didn't have a whole lot of other stuff to deal with, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing because, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to get my timeline straight, but in 2019, I believe that you didn't do so hot in the Olympia. If I remember correctly, you mentioned something about getting sick around that time, and so it didn't go as well. And then at 2020, you come back and you place from what I remember, fourth, right?
Right.
Correct.
Yep.
So huge turnaround, right? Like an enormous turnaround. Was it just because you were sick in 2019 and then 2020 you weren't, or was there improvements that you made between that time?
Definitely some improvements for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no
Um,
worries.
a lot of improvements for sure from 2019 to 2020. Obviously, wasn't sick and my health was
Mm-hmm.
up to par, but my training completely changed after the Olympia of 2019. Before, I was more on moderate weight, lots of reps, but training definitely changed to that old school bodybuilding training, very heavy. And that's pretty much how I trained all the way up until about 2 weeks out from the Olympia of 2020.
Yeah, yeah. So I
So
bet you were. I assume you were extremely excited to get that fourth place finish in 19. I was amazed. Not that I didn't think you deserved or anything like that, but just that the huge turnaround that you made in 1 year was incredible. I mean, fourth place, you literally have, you know, two people in the Olympia champ in front of you. You know, that's
right.
that's a great thing to have. And then so we're going to this year, and you place from what and I'm pulling it up right now, but just to verify, but I knew you were fifth, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you attribute, I guess, your placing to, if you know, that question kind of makes sense? I know it's very open-ended, but I want to allow you to be able to kind of speak on what your thoughts were.
Gotcha. Well, I will say this, as far as the placing for this year's Olympia, I will say is a little bit more so on the confusing side of the spectrum. Ideally with the Olympia, we're usually looking at peak conditioning. It's kind of like more of the shows, I would say, before the Olympia, I think judging is usually like slightly on a softer look. And then usually when the Olympia comes around, we're a little bit more conditioned. At least that's how it's pretty much been in the past.
Right.
So as far as my understanding and my feedback is that I was too lean.
Right.
But I mean, from the feedback that I've gotten just from, you know, Sisters in Iron, other athletes, things of that nature. I mean, the feedback was great. I couldn't have been more happier with the package that I brought. I definitely improved from the season before. Conditioning by far surpassed the conditioning that I had last year.
Yeah.
I wind up bringing my legs up a little bit more, glutes, hamstrings. And those were things that I personally wanted to change in my physique. And I set out to pretty much do those things with my coach. We set a plan and we got it done. So again, I couldn't be happier with what we brought.
Did your coach
sport.
say it again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part.
Effective sport.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
That's true. Sometimes it's kind of like that, right? I mean, you do what you can, you do the best you can, and then you kind of leave it in the hands of the judges. So, you know, there's not much else you can do. Did your coach say anything to you, like when you know it was kind of over? Did he have any kind of feedback or anything like that? Was he surprised?
Extremely surprised.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were really surprised.
Yeah. I'll give you my opinion in a sec here, but yes, what did he say? Just the fact that he was surprised or anything in particular?
More so being that he felt that out of that lineup, especially with the first call out, I was the most conditioned up there.
Yeah.
But again, I guess that's not the look that they were looking for this year.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll judge it by the look that they were looking for every year, not this year, right? So I thought, like, and I know I'm a little biased because we've known each other for a while and I had you on my show, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, excluding Sydney, because it would be really hard to knock her off with her background of winning all those shows. So I'm going to go ahead and exclude her. I would have placed you at second, at least, right? Because and I'm trying to get the girl's name right, but Gibson, I believe, Stephanie Gibson. I thought like she you know, she looked good, but again, like on a softer look. And it's like I was surprised that in the second place second placer and the third placer as well, I thought kind of a little bit on the softer look. And then you came out extremely, you know, conditioned. And then what I personally enjoyed was the difference in the way you posed. Now, it was slightly like different to what usually we see in the figure division, because it's kind of like more or less standardized, and you had like a personal flair to it. I thought that was awesome. I thought just for that, you should have been being able to show off your condition like that. It should have given you something in the eyes of the judges, right? So did you like, when did you decide that that's how you were going to pose? Is this like something that you kind of planned, or is this in the moment?
No, I've always pretty much had a different style of posing. Even when I first started as an amateur, it was definitely different. I didn't really capitalize on it until I would say maybe my pro debut at New York Pro. And then I think people started to really take notice my second year as a pro when I did New York Pro again and took second. And that's when I was a little afraid because I kind of took it to the next step on changing my posing because I was like, okay, look, I've always been a performer. The figure division, you know, I hate to say it, we don't have a lot of individuality. It's very boring, I guess you could say, mandatory posing. We have an audience, and yes, obviously we want to impress the judges, but at the same time we do have an audience. So it's like I want to draw people in while I'm showcasing my body at the same time. And so I think after that second New York Pro that I did ask for feedback. I was like, hey, like, you know, I know my posing is really, really different. Is that okay? Or do I need to pull back? And, you know, Steve Weinberger was really cool about it. And he was like, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. I thought that was awesome because I didn't even expect it. You know, it's just, you kind of, like you said, it's you know, it's a standard posing, you know, the girls come out, they do the same shots and then they leave. One of the things that I really enjoyed about the show as a whole was Sarah's performance in the women's physique. And, you know, they have that ability because they have that round where they can kind of do their own like routine. And I really feel like that's missing from some of the other divisions, figure, being one of them. So I thought you definitely like went as far as you could in showing that within still the parameters of the division itself. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was an amazing, unique addition to it. And I was extremely surprised at your placing, but like you said, I mean, it is what it is. You can't go backwards. You know, you brought the best package you could bring, you know, so at this point, what are your thoughts for next year? Like, have you been kind of like dwelling on, you know, what happened at the show? What are you going to do?
I took some time because I was going to do like a live and, you know, let everyone, you know, pretty much hear my feedback on everything, but I need time to kind of like collect my thoughts a little bit. You know, I've looked at the videos over and over. I've looked at the comparison shots over and over. And, you know, anything that I could really say at the end of the day is I beat the package that I brought the year before. It's a substantial difference in conditioning and bringing up certain body parts that I wanted to bring up. And at the end of the day, I let everyone take a look at the videos, take a look at the photos. They all speak for themselves.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And that's partially why I didn't contact you immediately, because I didn't want to, I know there was probably, you know, you had a lot of thoughts in your head, probably some frustrations, and I didn't want you to kind of speak out of those frustrations. So excluding you, like, how would you have had those placings?
To be very honest, don't get me wrong. I think Sid is an amazing athlete. He, by far, you know, before I even got on the stage, was one of my favorite athletes for sure. You had Latoria and Candice, and those were the three that I, you know, looked up to before I even stepped on a stage. But, you know, if I have to be really honest, as far as the lineup that was there, I'm not gonna lie to you, I personally feel that Natalia should have walked away with that first. I'm not gonna lie.
More conditioned.
And it's just the conditioning. I'm looking. And I know what Sid looks like when she's really, really, really on. I don't personally feel that that was her best package. But again, it's subjective. Right.
I know what you mean because well, she was given it was a relaxed pose, and she looked a lot softer in some of the shots than I'm used to her seeing. You know, we all know it's hard to knock off the Olympia champ, but I definitely think, Natalia was much more conditioned. And so it's hard to decide like what they want, right? So it's like, again,
scaling the divisions back. You know, it looks like they're just going for a softer look pretty much with all the female divisions, I guess, excluding women's physique and body. But I think they're starting to pull everything back. Because I mean, ideally, if you really read the category of figure, we're actually supposed to be quite a bit softer.
Yeah.
As the years have gone. And I think a lot of it also maybe had to do with bodybuilding being removed, women's bodybuilding being removed. So I think lines were starting to kind of get blurred there.
Mm-hmm.
At some people kind of taking a step down, going into women's physique. You had some people stepping down from women's physique, going into figure and so forth and so forth. But if you really read the criteria of figure, we are supposed to be quite a bit softer.
That's one of the questions or topics that I talk to people a lot about, is that how all the divisions overall have been getting harder. And now with this Olympia, it does seem like they're picking a softer look, especially for figure. And I know wellness has just started. But yeah, it's like it's becoming like that kind of scene. Now, in your case, when you are an extremely conditioned athlete, always on stage, how are you approaching next year now, like now with the result that you saw?
Right. I mean, I think as far as my body goes, as far as training goes, I know that I can't afford to really get any big up. I can always put a little bit more size onto the legs, so I can lift relatively heavier still with the legs, but I know I have to take a step back with my upper body so that I don't go overboard with that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as coming into a show, again, I really liked how I looked. I don't really plan to change very much. I might come in just a little bit fuller, just a tad bit softer. Um, and I think that's going to be a lot to do with dieting, maybe adding some extra carbs in here and there. But other than that, personally wouldn't change very much.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to spoil like your lines and your structure, like adding, like coming in really full or anything like that, because I mean, they're probably not going to reward that for sure. And then there's always that possibility, right, that they could switch on you and reward the more conditioned person next year.
Exactly.
So you could be winning the Olympia next year if you stay the same. You never know, right?
Never know. Never know. Hey, I mean, there's been so many things going on. I mean, we just got the notification yesterday on qualifications for the Olympia. I mean, we're all used to having top 5 go to the O, and now it's top 3. So
yeah,
got to get back to the drawing board and map out a plan to make sure that I qualify for next year's Olympia.
So I didn't even realize that. I didn't realize that it's top 3 this year. Wow. So that's a big change.
Definitely a big change. I believe I think men's open is top 5.
Yeah. So at this point, as you're talking about mapping the next year, now that I just found out and you already knew that you have to requalify, do you have any shows in mind or months in mind that you're thinking of competing?
Well, the Arnolds are definitely something that I'm looking at for sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have figure, right, in the Arnold this year?
It was a strange Arnold. A lot of divisions weren't in the Arnold this year.
Yeah, I was talking to Wendy Fertino, and I didn't realize that they pulled figure from the Arnold. And I was talking to her, and she said no, they're not having it. And I was very surprised, because out of all the women's divisions, I would have thought for sure, figure would be in. It's that division that kind of brings in the muscularity and the femininity, at the same time. So, but yeah. So, do you know if they're going to have it this next year in the Arnold?
I'm hoping so. That figure should be back in. I mean, the rumor is it is, right. But we're waiting to actually see it written out.
Yeah, it's in March, I believe, this year. So they moved it back to March.
Yeah,
back to Columbus, and they're hoping for Olympia to be back in Las Vegas. What do you
prove it? So it will be back in Vegas. I'm not sure if they're still going to be doing Planet Hollywood like they were originally supposed to do. But I also think it might be in November. December.
Oh, December. Yeah, okay. Thank you for assisting us, whoever was there. So okay. So which do you prefer? I know Florida or Vegas as far as competing for the Olympia?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I totally prefer Florida.
Yeah. It feels like it'd be easier.
It's easy to get there. There's no
Right.
time change. It's just chill and real easy. I don't want a long flight. I mean, from Atlanta to there, it's like an hour, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, it's very close. Like I said, my wife and I, we drive that direction because her family is in Atlanta and then some in Tampa. So it's like, so it's about halfway to Tampa. So yeah, from you to the Olympia, it's probably about an hour or so. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the less variables you have, like the easier it is to compete, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the time zone thing is a little annoying. I'm not gonna lie. I think also too, because it is Vegas, and I just also had did the Arizona Pro. That dry heat, man, it's not fun. I like that dry heat.
Is it just not fun for like just because you don't enjoy that climate, or is it affecting your physique at all?
I think physique wise, it's fine because I'm still able to dry out pretty nicely.
Mm-hmm.
But I always feel like I just have cotton mouth all the time. It doesn't matter how hard, like it just dry.
That's hilarious. Yeah, yeah. No, I just to kind of end the show on a positive note. Yeah, I definitely think you brought in the best you could have hoped to, and then at this point, like you said, just leave it in the hands of the judges, because really, I mean, what else can you do? You have to be content with what you've done and the hard work that you've put in. And I definitely think you're better than you were last year. And if this was a sport of, exact points and exact, and more of an objective sport, you should have came in better than you did last year. But because it's not, we're here. But I really appreciate you coming on the show, Nicole. Let me ask you this: are you still coaching? Are you still training in Atlanta?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what would be the best way for people to reach you? And I'll go ahead and tag it in the video, but go ahead and tell them.
Okay, well, you can always reach me on Instagram at World of Zenobia. I do also have a website, theworldofzenobia.com. So I also offer online coaching, in-person coaching, posing for various divisions, as well as contest prep.
Yeah, posing is huge now. I've noticed a lot of people, some people just offer posing only. They don't even do anything else. It's just coaching for posing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you definitely made a good a good representation for yourself as a posing coach during this Olympia, because I looked at that, I was like, wow, that's awesome. That's so refreshing to see something different, But all right, well, Nicole, again, thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you got legs to kill, so you can win the Olympia and the Arnold and everything else that you get involved in.
Absolutely.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.